So I went to my first car show with the mindset that I'm going to move a big part of my One Piece collection, maybe even cash out on a lot of it. But I learned really fast that going to a car show as a seller walking around is very different from being a vendor with the table. I want to break this down into a few categories. One, my first initial shock. What did I think as soon as I walked in? Keep in mind, this is my first ever car show that I ever went to. Two, whether I can actually get a deal done. I went there with the intent to sell all or most of my One Piece slabs. Three, the networking side. This is something I didn't think about, but it happened. Four, my final thoughts after the show. So let's get started. One, my first initial shock. The first thing that hit me was the amount of people and the fast paced everything was. At first, it felt like a little overwhelming. There were vendors everywhere, people walking around, people asking prices, people looking through slabs and binders, and deals happening quickly. But once I got into the groove of it, I started understanding the flow better. You kind of have to adjust to the environment. It is not the same as selling online, where you could take your time, check comps, think things through, and respond when you're ready, which is how I do 99% of my business. At a car show, everything is face to face, fast, and very direct. Two, can I get a deal done? Honestly, I did not get a deal done. It did not go originally as planned. I realized I am more of a seller than a customer. I would have been better off having a table instead of walking around trying to sell to vendors. My plan was to sell all or most of my collection, but I think my plan was too big for the scale of this event. I brought around 52 slabs, mostly mid to high end One Piece, and a lot of the vendors just were not interested in buying that type of inventory. The main vendors at my local car shows did not want to pay 80 to 90% on my mid to high end One Piece card. For my lower end slabs, some of them basically said there were no market for it. The first table I talked to, I told them I was looking to sell most of my collections. They spent about 15 to 25 minutes comping only 5 cards of the 52 slabs I had. And after that, I could already tell the interest was not really there for me. Another thing I noticed is some of the vendors did not want to look at anything unless it was a PSA 10. And that matters because if you bring any other slab companies, you probably won't get the sale or the offers you were really intending to get. I also started noticing poorly executed sale tactics. Trust me, I know a thing or two about sales, so I was expecting this and I was looking out. But a lot of these vendors, they're very bad at it. I could tell when they was acting like the market was dead for the card or they was giving me lower comps. And I know they was doing it just to get the card as cheap as possible. At the same time, I also have to be honest with myself too. I was a little bit friendly. I get to conversating, I get to talking about cards and One Piece, and next thing I'm pointing out lower comps and I'm negotiating against myself. That is something I need to work on because as a seller, you cannot do the buyer's job for them. Another big takeaway is that a lot of vendors do not have as much buying capital as you think. Just because someone has the table does not mean they are ready to drop thousands of dollars on a collection. So if you are watching videos online where people go to car shows and they cash out easily, just know it's not as simple as that in your local car show. These guys are not like the vendors at the big car shows where they cash out tens and twenties and 50 thousands of dollars on buyouts. It's just not happening at your everyday local car shop or your everyday local events. It's not happening. So this is the unexpected category. Number 3, networking. The networking side was honestly unexpected, like I said, but it made the show more enjoyable. Even though I did not get a deal done the way I wanted, I still made some good connections. I connected with some vendors. I also connected with some customers who came up to me after one of the vendors did not even want to look at my collection. That customer actually pointed me to other vendors that might actually be interested in buying and giving me a good percentage on it. That was probably one of the biggest positives of the day. Sometimes the value going to a show is not just the deals you think you're going to make that day, it's also the people that you're going to meet, the conversations you're going to have, and the opportunities that are going to pop up randomly. So these are my afterthoughts. Looking back, I did have a plan, but my plan was way too big for this type of event. Uh, a lot of vendors at local car shows are more comfortable with well known generic hype cars. With One Piece, especially mid to high range and other cars that may seem less noticeable, a lot of vendors at local shows are more comfortable with well known generic hype cards. With One Piece, unless it's an extremely high end card that everybody knows about, some vendors either don't know the market for it or they don't even know that it's a good card, and some vendors are not willing to take the risk. Most of them seem to understand the popular cards that are easy to move, the cards that everyone talk about. But once you get into deeper One Piece inventory, they might not seem the same value that you see or everybody else sees. What I should have done differently is bring smaller batches instead of trying to move everything at once. Instead of walking up with a huge collection, I should have had smaller groups of cards that I was going to use as bargaining chips. If they didn't want to buy it as a group, I could have used it as a partial cash deal and trade it into a different card that they had. Another lesson is that I should try to go as a vendor next time. If you have a table, people come to you. You can still walk around and network. You also get the benefits of displaying your inventory properly, and you get to get the better deals. As a vendor, I think I would have had a much better chance to sell, trade, and build relationships. If I go again as a buyer, I would probably focus on multiple low end singles that have grading potentials or cars I know I could resell quickly on whatnot. So instead of trying to force a big deal, I will look for cars with quick flip potential, clean raw copies, underpriced singles, or inventory that fits my audience. Now, here's the final takeaways. The biggest things I learned from the car show is car shows are not automatic cash out events. You need to understand the room, understand what vendors are actually buying, knowing your comps, and know when to stop negotiating. For me, the show was not a failure. I did not get the big deal done, but I learned a lot about how vendors think, how local shows work, and how I should approach the next one. Next time, I would either go in as a vendor or go in with a much smaller, more focused plan. And if you are planning to bring a collection to a car show, especially something like One Piece or anything other than Pokemon, really, do not assume every vendor is going to understand the market or be ready to pay strong comps. Go in prepared, know your numbers, and remember, sometimes the real value is in networking, not just the sale. I also want to add, be very cautious of your cards. If you go in there with a huge collection, you're giving the vendors trust to go through it and hoping that they put everything back. You can get very lost in conversations while people are looking through your cards, and it's very easy to not notice what is going on. So be very cautious on your cards when people are looking through them. So guys, this is the end of the video. Let me know what you think. If you never went to a car show before, what are you scared of? What's stopping you? And if you have gone to one, how was your experience? Let me know if you have any ideas on what I should make for my next video. I love you all. Peace.